Oh, there we go. Sorry. Appreciate that. Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of on my rant there. All right, so we'll start at the top anyway. Welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe for actual sound on the videos. But no, we'll start with the big news, of course, with Justin Turner going to the Chicago Cubs for around $6 million. So not a bad signing for them, but really kind of misses the boat here for the Chicago Cubs. This is a team that was supposed to be all in on 2025. They make the move for Kyle Tucker and trade away some big pieces of their future, and ultimately don't go after a guy that was his teammate in Kyle Tucker anyway, and go bring in Alex Bregman as well. So I think this is a real miss of a offseason here for the Chicago Cubs, a team that went out there and spent some capital anyway by bringing in Kyle Tucker, taking one step forward with Kyle Tucker, and immediately taking two steps back, because in that same deal, they lose Isaac Paredes, they lose Cody Bellinger in the deal with the New York Yankees, they take a step forward with Ryan Presley. They're kind of treading water as far as a team that's going to remain competitive, but I'm really wondering what they're going to do going forward. Is this a team that's going to invest more at the trade deadline? Is this a team that's going to just try to add around the periphery of this team, like the addition of Justin Turner? Those are the issues I have. Now, as far as the signing of Justin Turner, I thought they could have used a bench bat, a platoon option over there with Michael Busch. I'm expecting him to have some struggles in his second full season at the major league level. The BABIP numbers showed he was really, really lucky as far as the offensive production he produced last year for the Chicago Cubs. And maybe that's just him. Maybe he continues on that lucky streak. But I'm not expecting it. I'm expecting a sophomore slump for him. So getting a player like this to kind of help him get through those struggles is going to be good for this organization. They're going to have Shaw come up at some point this year and continue to have a little bit more success there. But I do like the fact that they are bringing in a veteran. I'm not saying that the signing isn't bad. I just think they missed an opportunity to do more. Does this signing make them win an extra 2-3 games? I think it might help them win an extra game, maybe two at best. Does this put them over the top in a very competitive NL Central? Probably not. So we'll have to see how things work out here for the Chicago Cubs. I think they had some opportunities here to really do something different and really push the pedal down, and ultimately chose not to do so with Alex Bregman, among others. Other top storylines from the day, of course, center around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. The move that didn't happen, the extension that didn't happen. I told you guys this offseason for Toronto would be solely judged off of whether or not they get that extension done, and obviously they failed. Really disappointing that they didn't get this extension done, that they really didn't get to the numbers that they were looking for. Vlad Guerrero and company basically saying that no, the numbers were not close. They were not even in the ballpark anyway as far as what could possibly get done. So I'm really curious to see what the next step is here for Toronto. Are they really all in for 2025 and this is the one last hurrah with the team that they built, and just, hey, if they sign him in for agency, great. If not, oh well, it's been nice knowing you, Vlad. Or do they realize, hey, he's going to be leaving in free agency because we don't necessarily want to spend at the highest level for him, and that he leaves for nothing, so we'll go ahead and trade him before that happens. Both are possible. And because they didn't get that extension done, starting today, the circus has officially come to Toronto. Every single day, Vlad, the team, all the executives, the manager, are all going to be asked, hey, how did the workout go for Vladimir Guerrero? Do you think this workout, the teammates that he has there, are going to be another reason why he wants to stay here? Or do you think this is going to have a negative impact on whether or not he wants to stay a member of the Toronto Blue Jays? Hey, do you think you're the right choice as manager for this team because, hey, maybe Vlad prefers somebody else? Hey, what do you think this rough losing streak does for his psyche? Does he want to stay in Toronto after losing X number of games in a row here? This recent winning streak, how do you think this polls with Vladimir Guerrero in his interest in re-signing here? Do you have more money available that you might be able to extend him an offer? Hey, I know he said that you weren't going to extend or going to talk contract extension during the season. How about going to him anyway and just saying, hey, what do you think about this number? How about revisiting the contract offers he might have proposed to you in the offseason? How about going back to one of those and saying, hey, we'll accept that deal now and just get the deal done overnight? Who says that this has to be a deadline? Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the one who arbitrarily put that deadline out there. Why not just say, the heck with it, we got you for one more year. We're going to use this as a completely, one team only negotiating period to try to get him to sign. Play hardball with him. Try to get this deal done. Try to, trot him out there every single time. Don't give him a day off. Run him till the wheels fall off. How are you going to hold, or how are you going to get this team across the finish line? Are you going to still add other weapons to this lineup? Are you still going to add some pieces at the trade deadline? All of these things are big question marks for Toronto that are going to continue day in and day out starting today. So as I said off the top there, the circus has officially come to Toronto, and buckle up. It's going to be a noisy one. Alrighty, appreciate you guys joining us today. Holly, I noticed you were first today. Sean, happy for your Cubs getting another offensive piece for the team. I think they could have done better, but I do like that they're finally getting some productive offensive players there as well. Welcome in Rafe, Al, Verlis. Appreciate you joining us once again. Johnny. Jordan, someone talk me on the ledge. Well, it's going to be a tough sell to do right now to Toronto fans. I mean, you're kind of hoping 2025 goes great. That you win the division, which I don't think is overly likely, that maybe you snake in as a wild card spot, maybe you win a round, and hopefully that convinces him to sign long term. But ultimately, this is the real problem here. Most of these possibilities are less than likely for the Toronto Blue Jays. So this is a team that could be going through a tough 3 to 5 year stretch here. So I feel for all of those Toronto Blue Jays fans out there. Justin Turner, a relic. He is getting older. I will say that. He still has some good offensive years ahead of him, I think. Years, I think, meaning 2 at most. This is, I believe, a 1-year deal that he signed. We'll have to see how this thing works out in Chicago, but I think this is kind of a stopgap measure. Hey, we tried kind of a signal to the Cubs fans that, hey, we're trying to improve this club, but we're not willing to necessarily spend at the top of the market. And they're a team that has the payroll that they could do some interesting things. Welcome in, Jose. I cannot wait until next offseason when Vladdy finally hits free agency. It's going to be crazy. I was looking into some of the payroll numbers for a lot of teams out there, looking at the Nationals, the Giants, the Yankees, the Mets, the Blue Jays, of course. The Rangers could possibly be a fit here. There's a lot of teams out there that are big market clubs that could be in the market for Vlad Guerrero. And I did see some reporting out there that says maybe Boston is his preferred destination. I have nothing to report as far as whether the validity of that report is true or not. But I would say it sounds a little bit untrue at this point in the cycle here. I don't think that there would already be whispers out there from Vladdy's camp saying, hey, Boston, free up some money for me, because I don't think they would do that when they're this far away from free agency. Now, sure, maybe through some back channels that he's just trying to check in on a few things, but we're a year away from that. I think he was true in his negotiations that he wanted to try in his full capacity and full honesty as a member of the Toronto Blue Jays organization to try to get an extension done. But ultimately, those talks fell flat. So feel for you, Blue Jays fans. Could be a rough couple of years. Rafe, Vladdy went from the offer that's on the table, then was like, wait, if they give me that, or give me what I want, then I'll reconsider. Well, we did see reports around the end of December, beginning of January, that the Blue Jays were stepping up their efforts to try to get him signed. We never heard the results of those efforts. We never heard numbers as far as what the contract offer possibly was. There were rumblings that it was over $400 million, that it was in the neighborhood of $450, but no confirmation of any of those reports. We'll have to see how this sweepstakes really pans out for them, but it's going to be a rough couple of months here, especially in the beginning of the year for Blue Jays fans. A couple other news and notes I wanted to get to. So let's talk about the Boston Red Sox. Now, first, what are they going to do defensively with Alex Bregman? They could play him at third base. That'd probably be where he'd be best defensively. Devers not as good as a defensive third baseman there. Move him over to first DH, possibly would be a good fit. Bregman says he's willing to play anywhere, though. So second base could be a possibility. First base, maybe some DH. Maybe just a super utility player, like a Ben Zobrist, like kind of a souped-up version of a Ben Zobrist type of player. I think the Boston Red Sox are hoping for a little bit better. And Devers has come out saying, no, I am staying at third base. I am a third baseman. I signed this deal with the Boston Red Sox under the understanding I will be the long-term third baseman here for the Boston Red Sox. Here's where it gets interesting. Alex Cora, the manager for the Boston Red Sox, says, hey, you know what? That contract was negotiated with a previous GM. Those promises with that previous GM reside with that previous GM. We will do what is best for the Boston Red Sox. Now, that's kind of the gist of what he was saying here, is that, yes, we're still going to try to honor the terms of your contract. If it's in the best interest of our team to have you play third base, then that's where we'll play you. If it's not, then we'll reconsider. And whether you play third base or not will be completely up to the decision of the Boston Red Sox, not to Rafael Devers. So, safe to say, shots fired from the manager there to the player, kind of saying, pipe down, buddy, I'm the manager of the team. I write out the lineup card, not you. Understandably, he's making a lot of money on that roster. The headlines we saw earlier this offseason apparently were true. Devers was not willing to move off of third base, and some of the Twitter, Instagram games that Devers was playing, liking some posts about Bregman coming over to the Boston Red Sox, liking posts that said maybe he'd be willing to move off of third base. Maybe he was just trolling us, but he made nothing unclear about his position today, saying he wants to play third base, and good on him. You got to be a proud player, got to have confidence in your skills, but at a certain point, you're a member of the Boston Red Sox. You serve at the pleasure of the Boston Red Sox. You sign the contract. You play where they tell you. Now, that might not seem very nice, might not seem like the contract you wanted to sign, might not seem like a two-way street between team and player, but guess what? You signed the contract. So ultimately, whether you play baseball or not is going to be up to you, whether you show up, of course, whether you're upset about not being at third base if they sign Bregman and then ultimately pencil his name in as their starting third baseman. Maybe you decide to sit out. Maybe you decide to step away from the team. That's kind of the drastic end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is, hey, suck it up, Buttercup. Time for you to show up and play some baseball. You're being paid a lot of money to go out there and hit the ball a long way. Let's go out there and prove what you're worth. Go out there and show how good of a baseball player you are. Hey, instead of just whining about possibly being moved off at third base because your defense hasn't been as good, how about getting better defensively at third base? Let's try those options first before we whine and say, well, the previous GM promised me the position. Boo-hoo. Get over it. Time to get better or move out of the way. That's what I'm saying. I mean, as far as the better moves, good baseball decisions, the best move as far as from a front office perspective, as far as the best defensive alignment for this team is probably to have Bregman over there at third base. Now, if Devers comes into spring training here and just lights the world on fire defensively, kind of takes the lackadaisical nature out of his game that he does have from time to time, if he gets back to being a very good defensive third baseman, then obviously you'd prefer to have that. But Bregman has been a third baseman. He came up as a shortstop. He has that defensive versatility. If Devers gets to that being that type of player again, absolutely great development for the Boston Red Sox. But until that happens, until I see it in practice anyway, I can't necessarily say in good faith that Devers is the best option defensively at third base. I think that resides with Alex Bregman. Alrighty. Try to catch up on a few of these comments. Jordan, I don't know if I'm missing something, but if you want to be a Blue Jay for life, you don't have to beat 29 other teams financially. If you want to be here for life, you'll take less than what other teams offer. Yes, but you also want to secure the future for your family. Yes, I know it sounds like a lot of money, $400-ish million, whatever their contract is, but I think all of us would agree we would want the better offer coming from the team we want to play for. Now, if the team we want to play for plays a little bit of mind games with us and says, hey, just because we know you want to play here, you're going to sign for less with us because, hey, you want to play here. I get it. It's a negotiating tactic, I should say, between the two teams. But this is a player that shouldn't be trifled with. When you're trying to get a player of his caliber at the top of the market, he deserves every penny he can possibly get from whichever team he decides to sign with. So even though he might like it in Toronto, says he wants to be there as a member of the Blue Jays organization for life. If the Blue Jays organization say they want to keep him as a Blue Jay for life, time to put your money where your mouth is. And time to go out there and shell out if you're the Blue Jays organization. I mean, you're a very well-funded organization. There's no reason to say why this team cannot go out there and pony up the money that is required to get him signed. So I'm not necessarily, blaming this on the player. I think that they're kind of laying the groundwork here for to try to save face in front of their fans, and I can kind of see how it's going to work on some of the fan base there in Toronto. But to a certain point, $50 million is still $50 million. $100 million is still $100 million. $400 million is still $400 million. 450, $500 million, that's still $450, $500 million. That's not exactly chump change. That's life-changing money. That's generation-changing money for future generations of your family. Not just one or two generations, but 3, 4, 5 generations down the line to have that money to fall back on. And can't really blame the player for trying to maximize his value and kind of holding the organization's feet to the fire a little bit. I mean, he's earned whatever your contract says is whatever you're worth is what somebody's willing to pay you for the work that you do. And so if some team is willing to pay him $500 million to be a member of the Washington Nationals next year, and the Toronto Blue Jays cap out at $400 million or $450, then I would say that the Washington Nationals won the negotiation. I'm not going to blame the player for leaving. So I get how some Toronto Blue Jays fans are kind of shaping this narrative in their mind already about how their favorite player should take a discount from their favorite team, but that's not how the world works. That's not how you would do it in that situation. I know all of us sitting a million miles away from this can sit back and say, oh, I would easily take less. I would be happy with $450 million. I would be happy with $450 million too. But if I'm in his shoes, and I realistically had an offer from another team for $500 million, $50 million is a lot of zeros in a bank account when turning down that offer. So I'd have to think long and hard about it, and the reasons why I'd be staying with the Blue Jays organization had better be worth $50 million to me or more. Otherwise, I'm taking that $500 million, and I'm not thinking twice about it. That's just the way it works. All right. I heard it was $100 million less than what he wanted per trusted sources. Haven't heard any real firm numbers as far as what the contract is, so I don't want to speculate too much here due to unsubstantiated reports. Some of the actual reporting said that the contract offers were in the neighborhood of $350 to $400 million, with a couple of reports saying as high as $450. But like I said, I don't want to echo too many of those out there because none of those have been substantiated yet. Maybe we'll get some insight of them in like a year or two from now. But right now, I don't think without having concrete evidence of it, I don't want to speculate too much on those numbers there. Jose, my Phillies could be a fit if third base, or DH position is open. Sorry, I just don't think so. Your finances are pretty much locked up for the next couple of years. That's why they had to go the Kepler route and Jesus Luzardo route and basically nothing else this offseason. Now, if they can find somebody to take on some of their bad contracts like Taijuan Walker, Nick Castellanos, etc., maybe that would be a route that they could go and revisit at that time. But I don't think it's going to happen. You have Schwarber at DH. He's only signed for a couple more years. That'd be one spot that could free up some money for you. But as far as the long-term money there in Philadelphia, you're looking probably 2 years from now until they make some big additions to this roster. They're kind of stuck with the lineup they've got right now unless they move some of those big contracts and attach some prospects to them to get them out of town. Jordan, David Ortiz said it was $545 million. That's an incredible number. Red Sox want Vladdy, but I don't know if they spend money like that. It's the Boston Red Sox or Mets. I think the Mets would go that high for a player of his caliber. Red Sox remains to be seen. I just think that the Red Sox organization got schooled a little bit by Scott Boras and Alex Bregman in those negotiations, getting a $40 million AAV. I think they're going to peddle that into a long-term deal for Bregman next year, kind of like what they did with Snell with the Giants and then to the Dodgers this year. I think that's what we're looking at here for Bregman. But we'll see. Maybe Bregman is going to be a member of the Yankees next year. Who knows? But I think wherever Vladdy goes, he's going to do very, very well in free agency. Devers going to F around and find out and get traded. If he keeps it up, possibly, but that contract is way too big for any team to take on right now. If he keeps the headache stuff up, then maybe we have a conversation about clubhouse issues, those kinds of things, if Devers continues to keep these types of issues going. Johnny, by now you guys have figured out I am a Houston fan, have been for a long time, and I think the thing that's going on in Boston Red Sox organization right now is great. You saw this coming. It looks like Toronto Blue Jays are going to strike out on 3 players. Kind of looks that way, unfortunately. They've already struck out a number of times over the last couple of years, so they're above 3 already by my count. But as far as the Boston Red Sox situation goes, I think this is an issue that's probably going to get quashed in spring training. I don't think it's going to be a long-term type of an issue. I think this is simply going to be a discussion handled between manager, GM, and player. Devers, I don't even think Bregman's going to be in the room. I think they're going to sit down Devers and say, hey, look, we're paying you a lot of money. You're supposed to be a leader on this team. You like your money? You like playing in Boston? Then just realize that you're in a great situation. Whether we play you at third base because you're the best option for this team, or whether we play you at DH or first base, it is our decision to build that lineup. And we're going to put you in the best position to succeed. Don't get me wrong. But it's not just going to be because you will it to be that you're going to be the third baseman of the Red Sox. You don't decide who's the third baseman and who isn't the third baseman of the Boston Red Sox. You want to have some control over that? Go out there and play better. Go out there and be a better defender at third base. Be the best defensive option for us at third base rather than just whining into a microphone that you're going to be the third baseman for the Red Sox. I think all of that will happen behind closed doors. I'm pretty sure it already did after the comments that were said in the media today. And I'm expecting this thing to kind of be quashed within the next week or so. Now, as far as where this defensive alignment gets figured out, I think that'll probably stretch into the regular season. I think they'll be playing with lineups throughout the regular season, figuring out their best defensive lineup, and I don't think it'll become a huge organizational issue that they'll have to handle. I just think they have to handle it very firmly now in spring training before it becomes a bigger issue. But we'll see where they ultimately decide to solve this issue at. Tom, welcome in. Sam, welcome back. Appreciate you joining us once again. Jose Ramirez signing a 5-year, $141 million team-friendly contract is rare. He might be the only player to leave that much money on the table. For baseball, yes. Basketball, I think the only two players that I can think of that really did the team-friendly deals, Dirk Nowitzki left over $100 million on the table as far as salary with the Dallas Mavericks in his time with Dallas. Tim Duncan is another one. As far as football, Tom Brady left him a little bit of money on the table so that the team could go out there and add some other pieces and make this thing work. But in baseball, it's very rarely seen as the way that it goes in baseball. Very rarely do you see moves being made as far as for luxury tax purposes or things like that. You'll get a few players that ultimately have to sign those cheaper deals because otherwise they wouldn't get that offer from a team. But very rarely do you see some of the big guys take less money. Jose Ramirez being one of those such players. Johnny, does Devers have any opt-out in the contract design? I don't believe so. We can check on that, though, if you'd like. I think it was just a straight contract from what I remember. Joe, if Devers can take a break from the chew everything inning, he might feel better, possibly. That's why Brady and Dirk are GOATs. Yeah, kind of my thoughts there as well. Alrighty, so that's kind of your news of the day. Let's get into the big news, of course, that we wanted to get into, of course. Continuing our 2025 season preview video for the San Francisco Giants. So without further ado, here we go. And welcome into the 2025 season preview video for the San Francisco Giants. My name is Michael here at the Upside Sports Network. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. Turn on your notifications. That way when we do go live, you guys will be made aware as we continue our 2025 season preview videos. So, we'll be live for you guys every single evening, breaking down the latest from the hot stove season throughout the regular season as well. So be sure to join us. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. But the San Francisco Giants are the topic today. They had a pretty good offseason, kind of changed the entire narrative around that organization. Farhan Zaidi is out, Buster Posey era is in. They go out there and actually get one of their top targets on the market this year in Willy Adames. 7 years, $182 million. They also, late in free agency, bring in Justin Verlander, which could be his final year. He signs a 1-year, $15 million deal to be the number 3 starter for the San Francisco Giants. Let's go ahead and check out their lineup and kind of go through their roster and see where their standings at. Looking at this roster, if it will load again, there it goes. This is their projected opening day roster according to Fangraphs, and I think it's fairly accurate here. LaMonte Wade, Willy Adames, Young-Ho Lee, 1 through 3. Matt Chapman had a kind of a renaissance year for him last year. Got a gold glove last year. I believe he finished like 11th in MVP voting last year. Just a good year for him. Good for him as well because this is a player that had really struggled offensively the last several years. Found some consistency last year. Got the extension. Really big extension when you look at it as well. Basically takes him through the 2030 season. I believe it was a 6-year, $151 million deal. Just an incredible number here for Matt Chapman. But they needed some more offense, and he was their best offensive player last year. I think Young-Ho Lee is going to be a really good option for them. Only played in 37 games last year, was cut short due to injury. So we'll see how he returns from injury, and I think that's going to be the telling tale for how the season really goes. I think Willy Adames is going to be the engine of this offense primarily. They have him at about a 4-WAR season. They have Matt Chapman at a 4.3, but a lot of that is the defensive numbers factored in there. The best offensive piece by far is Willy Adames. Young-Ho Lee, I probably would put as second, and then Matt Chapman third. The rest of this lineup kind of hit and miss for me. LaMonte Wade, 31 years old now. They're projecting him around a 1-WAR. The rest of these guys, like Elio Ramos, had a nice start to the year last year. They're projecting him for around a 2-WAR. The biggest WAR on the team, they're projecting for Patrick Bailey, and they're not exactly expecting a lot from him offensively, but handling that pitching staff, defensive numbers, that's where it's really going to be for him. But the rest of this lineup, Ramos, Yastrzemski, Fitzgerald, Flores, and Bailey is their projections. Their bench, Tom Murphy, I like that as a backup catcher. They also have another guy that they got from the Texas Rangers in AAA that I think could be a factor for this team at DH or at first base throughout the season. Could be Sam Huff. That's a name to kind of keep an eye on there. They also have Bryce Eldridge. I know a lot of the San Francisco Giants faithful out there are really hopeful for his future, but I do have some cautionary news for you guys to report. We'll get to him in just a little bit when we get to our prospect segment here. But they're predicting Wisely, Encarnacion, and Matos to kind of be the rest of this lineup here for the San Francisco Giants. Not a bad lineup. Certainly better than what they've done in previous years. Is this a division-winning lineup over the Los Angeles Dodgers? No. Is this a lineup that might be able to do enough with a good pitching staff to at least contend for a wild card spot for the majority of the season? Absolutely. Could they get some nice surprising seasons out of a couple of guys? Absolutely again. But I'm not exactly expecting this team to be world beaters. I'm not expecting this team to be, the Yankees from the 90s or anything like that. This is a team that I think has some good production there from Adames, Lee, and Chapman. Possibly some good league average production, maybe a little bit above that with Ramos and Yastrzemski, Wade as well. But other than that, I'm not expecting a whole lot out of this lineup. This is a team that's going to be trying to tread water for the majority of this year and set the table for a very competitive 2026. Looking at their starting rotation, this is where you got to rest your hopes if you're a Giants fan. Logan Webb, they're having a close to a 4-WAR season for him. I think you could very easily get that, maybe even above there. Robbie Ray, they're predicting a 1.6 WAR for him. They're predicting around a 4 ERA. They're predicting he starts 28 games, so that's pretty good numbers as far as innings. I think his strikeout numbers are probably going to be a little bit higher than what they're projecting, but we'll see. They're going to have to be for this team to be really competitive, but I think that's a pretty good 1-2 punch. Do I think it's the best in the league? No. Do I think it's the best in the division? No. Do I think it's in the top 2 of the division? No. I think the Diamondbacks and I think the Dodgers are probably the best 2 pitching staffs in that division. I think the Giants are falling back behind a little bit there, but this rotation could surprise some people who aren't paying attention. Justin Verlander slides in there at the number 3, 1.3 WAR for him, a 4 ERA. I think that's on a little bit on the high side. I think they're going a little bit off of resume here. His numbers last year were atrocious in the first half. Those numbers kind of came back to earth a little bit as the year went along, and then, of course, the bottom fell out at the end of the year. Justin Verlander, for me, I think this is his final swan song. I think the Giants would be happy with a sub 4.5 ERA. I think this could be an ERA well north of 4.5 if what we're seeing from last year continues this year. Jordan Hicks, good signing last year, bullpen piece, ultimately turned into a starter last year. The question is, how many innings can he give you? They're projecting about 135 for him this year. I would expect around a 1-WAR season for him. Is about accurate here. Not a bad for a number 4 option in this rotation. And then Kyle Harrison, a guy that you had really high hopes for in this rotation that really pushed them over the top. We'll have to see if he can recapture some of the promise that he once had. But at 23 years old, that's still a very young guy. Still has all the options there. 3 options left. Only 1 year service time. I think having him a little bit less pressure on his shoulders this year, I think bodes well for this organization. So not bad as far as rotation. I like what they've got at the top. The depth there is kind of nice, but they're probably the 3rd or 4th best rotation in their own division. This lineup leaves a little bit to be desired, and so while I think they made some nice strides this offseason, 2026 is really going to be where they're going to try to compete. I see this team as kind of the precursor to what the Rangers did in 2023, where a lot of their prospects didn't really work out. You look at a lot of the pitching guys that they had with the Rangers that ultimately flamed out, and they said, the heck with this. We want to try to compete. We want to try to win now. And so they go out there and sign Corey Seager. They go out there and bring in Marcus Semien. And then the following year, they bring in Jacob deGrom, etc. I think this is the first building blocks where there's still going to be kind of a poor, or that's not the right word, a less than effective team on the field, where they're still trying to fill in some spots around the lineup. And then next year, they kind of fill in the rest of the team and kind of go for broke next year. Right now, this is a team that still has a few holes on this roster, but it's building. It's an ascending club with failed prospects around it that they're trying to get a little bit more juice out of, but I just don't see it happening, and they're going to have to go down the road of free agency to be able to fill those spots in. And now that they've got Buster Posey in the front office there, I think that the days of them missing on their top options in free agency are over, as evidenced by the Willy Adames signing and kind of the stabilizing signing of Justin Verlander. I think that gives them a great leg to stand on when they go into free agency negotiations next year for guys like Kyle Tucker, guys like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, among others as well. As far as the bullpen, Ryan Walker, they have penciled in as their closer. 28 saves is what they're projecting. Not bad. Only a one WAR season to me tells me this bullpen, while it's got some promise, certainly isn't as good as, say, some of the best bullpens in the league, specifically the Los Angeles Dodgers. Doval, I think, could be a trade piece at the deadline if this team starts to fall behind a little bit in the standings. But not a lot of promise here. Looking at this bullpen, it's okay. Nothing I would hang my hat on, though. They have some good options, but nobody I'm writing home about saying, look out for this guy to take over as the next great closer in all of Major League Baseball. I don't think anybody in that bullpen right now is anybody I'd look at and say, hey, he's somebody I really think could have, best closer in the game type of a player. And that, to me, I think they're missing that type of punch out of that bullpen, especially when you have a strong rotation. Having a strong bullpen as well to kind of supplement it when your offense isn't as great would really be the clinching thing for me. But they don't have either one, so I think they're more of a middling team there. All right, as far as their prospects anyway, I already mentioned Sam Huff as far as a catcher, a name to kind of keep an eye on as the year goes along. Max Stassi, a good guy to bring in there as far as some veteran leadership there as far as a minor league catcher as well. Then we get to the first base guys, and I want to go on to Jake Lamb first before we touch on Bryce Eldridge. Lamb, I think, could be another player in that Sam Huff mold that kind of gets some time at the major league level nobody's talking about. Has some defensive versatility, first base, third base. So if they have an injury to, say, Matt Chapman or a corner outfield spot, if Lamb comes in, knocks the cover off the ball in spring training, maybe he surprises a few of us and makes the team. As far as Bryce Eldridge, let me go ahead and go over the prospects here. Look at his numbers from last year and just tell me if anything stands out to you guys. Played for 4 teams last year, just really ripped through this organization. Single A, High A, Double A, and Triple A. 51 games at Single A ball, 48 at High A, 9 at Double A, and 8 at Triple A. Look at his bio. He was just drafted in the first round in 2023. He's 20 years old, 6'7", big guy. But look at his production. He was absolutely fantastic in A and High A ball. He gets to Double A and he's hitting pretty well, showing some promise there. But he's not hitting at the level that he was at, say, High A. And he's only played 9 games. So then you say, hey, maybe he's already too good for Double A. Let's go ahead and move him up to Triple A. And what do his numbers do? They immediately hit the tank. Understandably, it's only 6 games into the year, etc. I get it. But this is kind of the worry I have with teams that have had failed prospects in years in the past. Call it kind of the problem I see with the Colorado Rockies. Kind of the same problem I saw with the Rangers when they were getting these failed prospects. Is they're pushing these guys too fast. Trying to get them up to the big league because, hey, they have all this promise. Why don't we go ahead and throw them at the big league level and just see them grow there? Why have them grow at the minor league level? Because you want them to have that success, to be able to learn and grow without that pressure of being in a major league uniform. Look at the Angels, the way they brought up Nieto and Shanuel. 2 good players that are at least showing some promise still, but I would argue would have been much better served by being developed in the minor leagues and allowed to have that success. And once they came up to the big league level, could really hit the ground running and move forward. Bryce Eldridge, I worry that the Giants are going to do something similar to with what other teams have done in recent years, is push these guys and they have really good success at the A level and High A. They get to Double A and show any sign of possible success and immediately shove them into the big leagues. And that's what I'm worried here about with Bryce Eldridge. I think this is a player that, the way the trend is going, that this is a player that could be on the big league roster by, say, May or June. I really hope that's not the case here. This is a player that I would keep in the minor leagues at least until the end of the year when you have those September call-ups. And if he's knocking the cover off the ball at, say, Double A or Triple A at that point, then yes, bring him up and just get him a taste of the big league level action at that point. But this is a player I'm worried that they're going to call up long before that, long before he's ready, and might ruin a very good prospect here in Bryce Eldridge. Again, really good prospect in High A. But you get to Double A, he's starting to hit pretty well, at only a 9-game sample size, though, and you immediately rush him up. So looking at his last 10 games, let's see if they have those numbers here. From the end of the year here, he was hitting the ball pretty well towards the end of his time in Double A. Not too bad, starting to show some consistency at that level. He immediately goes up to Triple A, and he does have a really nice hitting streak, but it's a lot of 1-for-4s, 1-for-5s type of performances there. And I just wonder how prepared he is for the next level, how prepared he was for that next phase of his development there. So again, I think he's a great prospect, but do not rush this guy. He's going to be a very good piece for you going forward. And if you want him to be that next great first baseman that we see in baseball, the next Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the next, Pete Alonso, the next, Albert Pujols type of player. Those are big, lofty expectations for a first baseman. But if you want him to get there, allow him to grow in the minors and reach those levels that you need him to reach before you shove him into the big leagues where he's unprepared and then you spoil him at that point. So we'll have to see how this thing works out. Welcome in, Joe. Appreciate you joining us. Dever should say it's his position, shouldn't just concede it over, although he eventually will. I agree, he should try to stay at that position, but prove it on the field. Don't just try to become a clubhouse issue because you say it is so therefore you're going to make it so. That's more the issue I have. Sure, say you're the Red Sox third baseman. Go out there and earn it. Be the better defensive third baseman. Don't just say, hey, I'm Rafi Devers. I'm going to sit in my lawn chair over here at third base because I claim it. And rather, as Alex Bregman is the better option defensively and would easily cover more range than Devers could right now. I think Devers is going to have to work at his defense to really earn that spot. And I think that's what Alex Cora was really saying with his comments today. Basically saying, hey, that was a promise made by the previous GM. We want you to earn your spot here, and you don't set the lineup. We do. I think that's more the issue. That's more how I think this thing will ultimately be handled there, is that it's going to have to be proven on the field if Devers can hold it down, and if he improves his play. Maybe he'll go out there and surprise us and be a better defensive third baseman this year. Rod, ex-Blue Jays fan over here. How's everyone's day going? I'd imagine pretty rough. Verlis, being tall to me will probably give him issues. Maybe I'm off on that. Tall first baseman isn't necessarily too big of an issue. Sometimes bigger players can have a hole in their swing with a longer levers, if you will. Sometimes the shorter players, the smaller levers, the more compact swing can cover the plate a little bit better. But I think the power is really going to be there for a player of his size. I don't think necessarily size is a negative thing, though. Look at Aaron Judge. He's a big guy who does perform very, very well. Shohei Ohtani is a pretty big size player as well. Randy Johnson, as far as a pitcher, I don't think necessarily size is a detractor. I just think sometimes you can have certain holes in your swing that other players might not have. It's just a matter of learning how to adjust to those things, recognizing the holes in your swing and trying to figure out how to compensate for those. And that's where the development really comes in here for Bryce Eldridge. Because once he gets to the big leagues and he's trying to solve those holes in his swing, that's where the major league pitchers are going to eat his lunch. He's not going to be able to develop nearly as fast or nearly as successfully at the big league level as he would at the minors, where he can solve those issues at the minor leagues, work with the coaches, and get more attention to detail on his own development in the minor leagues. Whereas the major leagues, they're focused on winning games. They're focused on going out there and winning that game that day. They're not focused necessarily on your development so much as winning that game. And if your development is going to help them win the game, absolutely, they'll try to help you as much as they can. But ultimately, they're focused on, hey, how good a defense did you play? How good offensively? Where are you going to slot into this lineup? Not necessarily for your future, having somebody protect you in the lineup because you're not as strong of a hitter right now. So we'll go ahead and protect you in the lineup. That way, you might see some better pitches to hit. Instead, you're a worse hitter, so we're going to put you at the bottom of the lineup. You're not going to be protected. You're not going to see great pitches to hit. And pitchers are going to have a field day with you as far as if you have issues at the big league level, those pitchers are going to have a field day with you because you don't have that skill set yet. And that's why I think Eldridge and players of his ilk should stay in the minor leagues and prove and earn their spot on the major league roster at that point. So I just think players are being pushed too quickly at up to the major league level, and I think that's something that should really be addressed. All right, so we've talked a little bit about their lineup, their rotation, the bullpen, where their prospects kind of sit. Looking at their other prospects, they only have one top 100 guy in Bryce Eldridge. The rest of them kind of hit and miss years last year. There are some failed prospects, like I mentioned, like Marco Luciano, who is a former top prospect who was supposed to be the next great shortstop for the Giants. Ultimately, they bring in Willie Adames, tells you where Luciano's future is with this club. They've ultimately moved him off of shortstop already. He's going to be playing a little bit of the outfield in spring training. As far as other top prospects, some of the other pitchers that they've had, Harrison had some ups and downs anyway. Matos comes to mind as well. But this is a team that's failed to get really good production out of their prospects, and I think they're going to have to go the free agency route over the next couple of years to really supplement this roster. And as those prospects are kind of blocked at the major league level, maybe their minor league system will improve because of that development being allowed to happen at the minor league level. and then they'll have a better minor league system for it. So that's the thought process here. That's kind of the silver lining, if you will, for Giants fans. All right, so what are the wins of the offseason? The biggest win for me, removing the stigma left by Farhan Zaidi, bringing in Willy Adames, bringing in Justin Verlander. I completely changed the trajectory of this organization. Looking at the front office there with Farhan Zaidi, they missed on several top free agent targets. And I'm not just talking about the last couple of off seasons. I'm talking about the last 5 entire years of Farhan Zaidi. Things did not work out. Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, Aaron Judge, among several other guys that ultimately decided to sign elsewhere. Xander Bogaerts, Carlos Correa, the list goes on. And ultimately being players' fallback option. Hey, I didn't get a long-term deal that I wanted to on the free agent market, Carlos Rodon. I'm going to go ahead and sign a 1-year deal with an option and see what I can get in free agency the following year. Signs with the New York Yankees for the long term. Blake Snell this past year. And you look at players that have used them like a pit stop the last several years. Gausman before that. It's just been a poor cycle of management anyway under Farhan Zaidi. So the win of the offseason is just getting rid of that stigma around that Giants organization and bringing in Buster Posey and changing the narrative around this team. Willy Adames really going to be one of the better offensive players they've had there since Buster Posey retired. They really needed to get some pop in that lineup, and I think that's why they gave the big money deal to Matt Chapman. A lot more money than I would have been comfortable giving to Matt Chapman, but when you're struggling that much offensively, getting your best offensive piece, even though he's not performing necessarily at a great offensive level compared to other contemporaries of his, he's still your best player offensively at that point, so you had to get the deal done. I get it, but I just think that it's going to be a little bit of an overpay in a few years when you look at that deal and you go, why are we paying Matt Chapman $30 million a year? I think that's the bigger issue for me. But again, they changed the stigma around this organization with the Willy Adames signing. Their offense is going to be a little bit better, but I think it sets the table now for 2026 and what they're going to do there. Justin Verlander, just when things started to look like they were reverting back to Farhan Zaidi, they miss on Corbin Burnes. Hey, maybe the Giants aren't exactly over the Farhan Zaidi days. They get Justin Verlander to kind of establish some legitimacy with this team, that if Justin Verlander signs here, maybe they are ready to go. Maybe they are a team that's ready to compete for a wild card. And if this is Justin Verlander's final season, hey, he wants his final season to be as a member of the San Francisco Giants. Hey, maybe they've got the right thing going there in San Francisco. And again, just really good job by Buster Posey and that front office of getting their guy in there. They missed an opportunity in Corbin Burnes. There were rumblings that they were in there for Pete Alonso. Ultimately, I think that was the right decision to go ahead and not get that deal done. But bringing in Justin Verlander on even better, a 1-year deal, was probably the single best move outside of Willy Adames that they made. I thought there could have been a possibility that they traded Doval earlier this offseason. That would have been a nice move for them, but that might be one of their few misses this offseason. Now, as far as their mistakes this offseason, I think Matt Chapman getting that extension done probably be the biggest one. But outside of that, I know they were trying to bring in other guys this offseason, but getting the Willy Adames signing just overshadows all their misses and mistakes that they really could have made this offseason. Not signing Justin Verlander to a multi-year guarantee. Not going out there and spending at the top of the market on a starting pitcher who wasn't necessarily worth it is also another win for them. It saves some of that powder for them. We'll get into the payroll here in just a moment, but the Giants are set up for future success. They're not going to win too much in 2025. I think at best they might be a wild card team. But in 26, 27, 28, their payroll looks very flexible. They could do any number of things. We talk about Kyle Tucker. We've talked about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Those are some big options that they could ultimately bring in. Being told to me, yes, okay. They talked about that one already. All right, so let's look at the payroll here for the Giants as well. Where do they stand in relation to the rest of the league? So as far as the payroll, Willy Adames only going to be making $13 million each of the next 2 years, but then his payroll jumps up to $31. Counts for 26 against the luxury tax calculations. Matt Chapman, again, $25-ish million for 6 years. That's a lot of money for Matt Chapman, especially when his defensive abilities are still very good, but we're showing a little bit of decline anyway with Toronto. Won a Gold Glove last year, showed a little bit better last year, but he's 31, almost 32 years old. By the time this contract is over, you're looking at a 38-year-old player at $25 million per season. That's a lot of money for a player who's not exactly lighting the world on fire offensively. Now, yes, payrolls are going up, and maybe they can stomach that type of a salary, but I think that might be their one albatross, quote unquote, on this payroll table. Robbie Ray, $25 million each this year and next. Bit of an albatross as well, but they kind of took that albatross on by offloading Haniger in that deal as well. I get it. You try to kind of take a little bit of a lottery ticket here on Robbie Ray. He has to get back to being a number 2 type of a starter in this rotation to make him worth that money. We'll see if he establishes himself at that level this season for the Giants. Young-Ho Lee, great option for them. $16 million this year, jumps up to $22-ish million each of the next 4 years. He's only 26, 27 years old, and I think he's got a really good stick that he'll be swinging this year. I think the offense that he provides will surprise a lot of you guys out there. And then Logan Webb, one of the best deals on the market anyway. Of course, they bought out a few of his arbitration years with that 5-year, $90 million extension that he signed a year or so ago. $12 million this year, $23 next year, 23 and then 24. He's going to be a 31, 32-year-old free agent in 2029. And I think at that point, Logan Webb will be one of the best starters in the league at that point and will command a salary well north of what he's got, or this deal will really look like about what he's worth on the market. I think Logan Webb is a really good starting pitcher. Does he elevate even further than what he is now? Justin Verlander, of course, a free agent at the end of the year, only $15 million, very good option there. Want to scroll down here to what their actual payroll looks like. And this year, for luxury tax purposes, they're at $217 million. You'll notice at the bottom here, I don't know if it'll let me highlight it. Yes, it will. Their first level of the luxury tax threshold is $241 million. They could have afforded another big-time salary in this payroll structure. If they had brought in a Corbin Burnes, or if they had done something along those lines, they could have easily afforded it. But they chose to go ahead and bring in Willy Adames. They tried for Corbin Burnes. When that didn't happen, they pivoted and brought in Justin Verlander. But look at what their payroll does next year. Goes down to $147 million for luxury tax purposes. That means that they're going to have plenty of money to go out there and sign a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So say that contract comes in at, say, $40 million per for Vladdy next year, or say they go after Kyle Tucker and they offer him $40 million, they can afford 2 of those guys with the way their payroll drops down next year and still be underneath the luxury tax threshold. So this is a team that's set up to spend and spend and spend next year, so expect them to be big spenders in free agency. Tom, it's too late for the Blue Jays. Vlad is gone. I think it is, honestly, at this point. I think the headlines, the circus coming to Toronto is not going to help things there. I think the time for them to get that extension done was probably a couple of years ago, or a year ago from now anyway. 2 years before free agency is really when you want to try to get that deal done by that time. When you get this close to free agency, players kind of look at the light at the end of the tunnel and say, hey, well, how much could I really get on the open market? They kind of get an eye for the free agency and say, hey, maybe, just maybe, free agency is the way for me. And with the Blue Jays' uncertainty going forward, the instability on that team as far as the long-term contracts that are going to be there, what the team is going to look like even a year from now, those I think are big question marks for Vlad Guerrero Jr. And the Giants, speaking of the team we're talking about today, could be one of the suitors for him in free agency. All right, as far as the holes that are left on this roster, I think that's what 2026 will solve. But if they're trying to compete, say they have a great year this year and they're trying to compete and get to a wild card, I don't think they do anything big. I think they'll try to add a piece or 2 around the deadline. Let's go ahead and go over to baseball trade rumors. And I know a lot of you guys have been posting ideas about Vlad Guerrero going to the Giants. So let's say the Giants want to have the exclusive negotiating window with him and try to get him signed long term. So they say, hey, the heck with it. Let's go ahead and try to trade for him now and see what we could get for, or try to get a deal done for him. So let's pull up the Blue Jays. Let's pull up the Giants. Blue Jays, of course, we want Vladdy. Vladdy's value right now is at 23. At the trade deadline, it's going to drop down to probably around 18. So kind of keep that number in mind for the trade deadline. So around 18, you're not going to get any of these top options here. Eldridge is not going to be on the table, any of those deals. Look at how valuable that Willy Adames contract is. He brings so much value, and he's only 29. We'll have to see how he performs, but that's a really good contract that they signed. They're trying to win this year. That would be the thought process of bringing in Vladdy. So you're not going to trade your closer. Birdsong could be a nice piece for them, a 22-year-old starting pitcher. If you're going to spend in free agency, maybe that would be one way to go. And they could use another starting pitcher going there long term. So let's go ahead and put Birdsong as the headlining piece of this deal. Remember, we're looking for around 18 in value. So we got 12.7. So if we go a little bit higher in value, let's say we go with Matos, one of the prospects that has not worked out as of yet. He could be a piece there. I'm going to go a little younger, though. I'm going to go with Dakota Jordan, the center fielder. And I know the value doesn't look right now, but again, at the trade deadline, Vladdy's value is going to be around 18 on the high end. So this would be a pretty good deal here. Validate the trade. Minor overpay. We're going to post it anyway because this is going to be a trade deadline deal. Not a bad value there. Graham, welcome in. The Soto contract did also up his asking price. Couldn't agree more. I think it reset the price of poker for a lot of free agents this offseason that signed their deals. Looking at the Santander deal, I think that deal got bumped up a little bit. Alonso's deal wasn't affected as much as far as the higher end of it. I think the long-term ability for them to be able to get a long-term deal done there with the Mets was hindered a little bit by that Soto deal. But other players like Adames saw nice raises in their contracts. Bregman's AAV also got a nice boost there as well. Several other big-time contracts that were signed this offseason were positively affected by that Soto contract. So next offseason, the Kyle Tucker deal, the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. deal, I think are going to be beneficiaries of that Soto deal as well. But like I said, this year is not the year to push their chips to the middle. This would be the type of deal that they make if you're a Giants fan, that, hey, we're a close team that we're trying to compete and win a wild card spot. We might be able to get that exclusive negotiating window with Vladdy. Hey, maybe if being traded, maybe he'll reopen extension discussions before we get to the end of the season. All of those things are possible with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That's the type of move I think if they're trying to buy at the deadline that they would make. If they ultimately are out of the wild card, maybe they try to move out a piece like Doval. But as far as trades, I think the big piece that they might try to bring in is Vladdy Jr. or another piece like that, an offensive piece for them. Now, as far as what the 2025 season is going to hold for them, I think they're just going to miss the wild card spot, and I don't think they make a trade for Vladdy. But if they are in that hunt, maybe they surprise us and get that deal done. So I'm going to say they finished. Let's go ahead and look at their standings last year, just kind of show you where I'm expecting their improvement to come from. Last year, they were, 6 games out of the final wild card spot, finishing with, or 9 games out of the final wild card spot, finishing with 80 wins. I think this is a team that easily gets to like 86, 87 wins. I think Willy Adames coming in there, I think some of the pieces that they added to that team are going to have some good progress there, and I think Robbie Ray, a full season to him, is going to help out as well. I think this is an 86-win ball club that just misses the wild card there. So good offseason for the Giants, but it's all about 2026 and building from there. But that's kind of where I see them finishing. As far as the playoffs, like I said, I don't see them making the wild card. Expectations for this roster, I think they've got some good offensive pieces as far as in that 3, 4, 5, or that 2, 3, 4 spots. But I think that they need some overall talent overhaul at some of the other spots. I think they could use another first baseman if Eldridge isn't ready. If he's not ready next year as well, they could use a first baseman at that point. I think they really need a power bat more than anything else. So I'd be looking at Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I'd be looking at Kyle Tucker. Somebody who brings some power. That's, the biggest issue I have with this team. Ever since Barry Bonds left, they haven't really had a power threat. Willy Adames is their best threat right now in that lineup. I would expect maybe a 30 home run season for him on the high end, maybe a 40 home run season. But a real power threat in the middle of this lineup would be exactly what the doctor ordered for this team. If they get that bat in the offseason next year, I think this is a team that would compete and possibly win a wild card at that point. Graham, it would be interesting if the Jays try and extend Bichette. I think there's a possibility that happens, but I think the contract for Bichette is all over the place. It could be as low as, say, a 3-year deal worth $40 million if he plays as poorly as he did last year. If he plays at the Bobby Witt level that he once did, we could be looking at a $300 million player. I think more realistically, a good year by Bo Bichette gets him a deal in the neighborhood of what Willy Adames got this offseason. I think is the way we're seeing Bo Bichette ultimately go. Graham, you are way more optimistic than most Giants fans I know. They are not happy campers at the moment. Well, I actually like what the Giants have done. I think they've got a positive direction for the first time in 5 years, and I'm kind of optimistic about where this team is going to go. Now, I'm not very bullish on Justin Verlander, but I am very bullish on what he signifies to the rest of baseball. He signifies to other free agents who respect Justin Verlander for the Hall of Fame pitcher that he is, or at least was, that he wants to finish his career, or could finish his career, as a member of the San Francisco Giants. Establishes some legitimacy with that team. Again, Farhan Zaidi kind of made this team a afterthought, really, for where free agents could ultimately go. See the Gausman deal, see the Rondon deal, see the Snell deal, etc. Chapman even last year. I think this is a team that was kind of an afterthought for free agents. They said, oh yeah, you got the money, but where's the future of this team? Now you have some long-term deals already locked up. You have a good starting pitcher. You have some good options coming that haven't really worked out at the major league level. But if you spend the right money here, you could really turn this thing around and get into a wild card spot as soon as next year. Graham, if Adames hits 30 home runs this year, it'd be the first time any Giants player has done so since Bonds. That's kind of my point here. This is a team that hasn't really had power in years. Adames is their best power hitter right now, but I don't think he's necessarily the power hitter they need. I think he's a good, second option for a power hitter, but I need somebody that's really going to knock the ball out of the park. An outfielder that can do it, because right now their outfield leaves a little bit to be desired to me. I think Lee could be a very good contact hitter for you in center field, but you need some power in that lineup, like a Barry Bonds. Obviously, we know all the off-the-field issues and PED stuff with Barry Bonds. I get it. I don't care about that right now. But talking about the Giants specifically, you need power, and you haven't had it for a very long time. That's why we bring up Bonds. That's why Adames is a really good signing for them, but they need more. They need more of that power, and I'd really like to see them get it next offseason. We talked a little bit about trades as far as what they could make, trades they could go ahead and do to try to improve this team, but again, it's about 2026 for me. Offseason grade for the Giants, I'm going to go ahead and give them an A+. I know that seems really high considering I don't have them as a playoff team, but the reason why it's an A+ is because they turn the page from the Farhan Zaidi era. That to me alone makes this offseason a B. And then getting Willy Adames, I think a really good piece, a really nice value as well on the market. And then on top of it, kind of the cherry for me is Justin Verlander. Not because of what he's going to do for them on the field, but purely from what he signifies to the rest of baseball as far as the legitimacy of the Giants going forward. I think that's going to have big impacts going into 2026 free agency. Mark my words, they're going to land at least one, if not two, top-flight free agents. Whereas in years past, under Farhan Zaidi, they would have been the name out there. Absolutely. The Giants are rumored to get Aaron Judge. The Giants are the team for Bryce Harper. The Giants are the team for Manny Machado. Ultimately, to fall short, hey, we tried participation trophy there. And, we'll see what happens for the Giants. But I think 2025 is a growth year for them, mainly from a free agent destination standpoint, kind of changing the stigma around this organization. Now, could they surprise us? Maybe there's, where could be some surprises that might land them in a wild card? Say Robbie Ray established himself as a Cy Young level pitcher. That's possible. Likely, no. Maybe Justin Verlander has another great Cy Young level year in him. Is that possible? I suppose. Likely? I don't think so. I don't think there's a remote possibility of it, but it's still on the table. Those could be some real surprises if you're a Giants fan on the positive side. More realistically, I think you're looking at an 86-win ball club where Justin Verlander's around a 4, 4.5, 5 ERA type of a player, and I think this team has some nice growth for it. Do I think that they get to the wild card? Probably not. Now, on the downside, what could be the floor of this team? Say Willy Adames gets hurt, or Young-Ho Lee doesn't hit, or doesn't stay healthy once again, or Matt Chapman regresses offensively. All of those are possible. I'd say Matt Chapman regressing offensively is a guarantee at some point here in the next couple of years. But maybe that happens this year, and that 86-win possibility this year drops down to, say, a 78, and a 76-win team. I think if they get all those surprises, like I was talking about, a Robbie Ray, a Justin Verlander, great season, then I think this team might elevate to, say, a 92, 93-win team and win a wild card spot. But I don't think they're beating the Dodgers for the best in the division. I don't think they have another 107-win, out of nowhere team like they did a few years back. That's not happening this year. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us. We've covered quite a few teams with our 2025 season preview series. We started with the Chicago Cubs. We covered the Los Angeles Dodgers, the New York Mets, the Kansas City Royals, and now the San Francisco Giants. Tomorrow we'll go ahead and do another American League team. We'll go ahead and discuss the Boston Red Sox. A lot of news coming out of that team, a little bit today anyway, is that they signed a reliever to a minor league deal that you may have heard of. Adam Ottavino is back with the Boston Red Sox on a minor league deal. So again, they addressed that bullpen. They addressed that starting rotation very well this offseason. Garrett Crochet hit 99 on the radar gun today to kind of take over as their quote-unquote ace of this staff. You have Walker Buehler in there. You have Sandoval there as well to kind of help bolster what they already had and some good young starting pitching options. Now they get the great right-handed bat that they were looking for in Alex Bregman. This is a team that's ready to go and ready to compete at the top of this division. Maybe they make some other additions at the trade deadline, but I think they're going to have some good minor league additions coming as well in the form of Roman Anthony and the second base prospect. I can't remember his name at the top of my head. Chance Crawford, something like that. It started with a C. But they got some good prospects coming there in Boston, is my point. Abreu probably going to be moving off of right field anyway. I think Roman Anthony is probably going to be the long-term answer for them in right. Duran is a really good center fielder for them. What they do with Bregman and Devers, I think, is going to be the story here in the spring training. I think they'll solve their issue within a week as far as in the clubhouse. And then I think defensively, they'll figure out the issue as they go through the season, where they want to deploy these guys. So tomorrow we'll get into the 2025 season preview for the Boston Red Sox. Rod, I'm surprised JD Martinez still doesn't have a team. I agree. I think he'd be a good DH for somebody out there. In my honest opinion, they need at least one more big bat and a high-end starting arm. I agree. I wonder if internal trouble is brewing there. Internal trouble brewing where? With the Giants? I don't think so. With Boston? Maybe with Devers and the front office, but I think they'll squash that here in the next week or so. I think Devers is just being a little bit hard-headed and that he wants to keep it. Christian Campbell, thank you. I knew it started with a C. I couldn't think of what his name was. But that's kind of your season preview here for the San Francisco Giants. We'll go over the Red Sox tomorrow. I'll brush up on my Red Sox information. Appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. And thank you guys so much for all the support you guys give us. We'll have a couple of videos coming out for you guys tomorrow, updating you on some of the signings that have happened over the last couple of days as well. So be sure to check out those when they come out tomorrow afternoon. All right. Y'all have a great evening, and stay safe out there, everybody.